My last boyfriend I dated had a very strict no crying rule. His whole reasoning behind this was like, it didn't matter what you were crying about, he just thought like all crying was manipulation. This rule became very hard to follow once I got to law school because I was in my first semester of law school, and I just think there's a lot of tears that come shed with first semester 1L. To the point where like I literally had like strikes. He was like, if you cry this many more times, we're over. The night we broke up, I got to his apartment and there was a girl that I was pretty sure he was cheating on me with. And right when I got to his apartment, why are you guys in your room for 20 minutes with the door closed? I had a moment alone with him. I broke the rule and I cried because I think that's a pretty valid reason to shed a few tears. And he broke up with me on the spot. He was like, I warned you. Literally for an entire year after that, I was like convinced it was my fault because he had drilled it in my brain like, you're pushing me to break up with you. I did not forgive myself until like a year later a therapist was like, that was manipulation and gaslighting.
You've probably learned the hard way not to cry in front of a narcissist when you didn't get the sympathy and support that you expected. Have you ever wondered why narcissists and other toxic people get so upset and even hostile when we cry? Hi, I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy, a mental health clinician and a narcissistic abuse survivor, and this is the 15th episode of Toxic Love. If you're interested in learning more about pathological love relationships, please stick around by subscribing to this channel where each week I'm deconstructing a toxic relationship from start to finish. And let me know that you're enjoying this video by hitting the like button. So why is crying in front of a narcissist a no-no? In this video, I'm going to take a deep dive into the mind of the narcissist as well as the antisocial personality disorder, aka psychopaths and sociopaths, to explain why this wild, seemingly weird rule exists. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to give you practical tips on what to do if you're living in this situation. As I explained before, our basic drive is for survival, so of course we're concerned about having shelter, water, and food, but we're also concerned about our safety. These days, we don't live in a world full of saber-toothed tigers, so instead, we focus on our psychological needs, such as feeling important by being seen, and knowing that we belong to a group like our families and communities. But how we achieve this much-needed psychological safety can be tricky. Those of us lucky enough to grow up in a supportive home learn we can ask for what we need. When our parents, teachers, religious leaders, and mentors respond to us encouragingly, we learn that being vulnerable is okay, and we discover we won't be rejected for making a mistake, and we aren't ridiculed for being weak, and failure becomes part of our learning, survivable, not world-ending. And all of these positive experiences get internalized and become the way we treat ourselves and each other when faced with similar moments in the future. And over time, we become better able to handle harder and harder psychological challenges as our internal skills of learning how to deal with disappointment, discomfort, and insecurity grows. But sometimes things go wrong for those of us who are on the more narcissistic, psychopathic end of the personality spectrum. Due to a combination of genetics and early environmental experiences, some of us grow up in a very dangerous world. Maybe the authority figures excessively shamed or scared us. Maybe something really bad happened that changed the way we view the world. Maybe we were born extra emotionally sensitive and interpreted everything around us as a threat. But some of us learned that the world isn't safe, that being vulnerable was perilous and failure devastating, and the world seemed to be at war with no one who was a safe harbor. I saw a bit of this mindset in my late husband, the first one who died. Though he wasn't a narcissist, he did struggle to feel emotionally safe. Overeating was an issue, a habit that had come from his childhood. He used to tell me that he would gobble any special treat that came into the house, because if he didn't, it wouldn't be there later to enjoy. One of his other siblings would get to it first. No one cared that it was his or that he'd put it aside. It was first come, first served. When we were married, this competitive overeating style became a habit and a problem. He would take as much food as he could, creating tension between us. I started to feel very protective of my portions, like I couldn't trust him to be fair. Imagine this dynamic permeated every aspect of someone's life, that everything done around them was a manipulation so that those that they loved could come out ahead. You wouldn't trust anyone, not even your parents or your siblings. And imagine in this world, your reactions, opinions, and behaviors were scrutinized, criticized, and ridiculed. You would begin to treat everything about you as though it was top secret and only divulged on a need-to-know basis. You wouldn't feel safe displaying any reaction, and you'd begin to treat your privacy much the same way that the CIA protects their undercover agents' real names and geographical locations. People who have this type of mindset view any type of emotional display as fraudulent. Real emotions they keep hidden, while they use things like tears as a useful tool for exploitation. So what does that mean for those of us who are in a relationship with a narcissistic or psychopathic individual? Unfortunately, you won't be able to trust much of what they share. Their personal stories and emotional reactions are done for ulterior motives, what psychologists call secondary gains. If you don't already know Lee Hammock Mental Healness, let me introduce him. Lee is a self-aware narcissist who entered treatment for MPD over 5 years ago. Here's what he has to say about narcissists and tears. Narcissists' root core is shame, which in turn makes them envious of others. To cover their unconscious fear of being found out as a fraud, they deceive themselves into thinking that they're special, bigger than life, and entitled to anything they want. Well, of course, life doesn't work that way, which unconsciously shakes them up. So to explain away this inequity, they claim the world is inherently unfair. They've been victimized out of what they deserve. And to manipulate the situation, they use every psychological tool at their disposal to get ahead, including crying. Antisocial personality disorders do the same thing, but for slightly different reasons. Unlike the narcissist, they aren't insecure. It's been theorized their internal core is rather empty and prone to terrible boredom. They're thrill-seeking, and fear makes them feel very alive. Psychopaths and sociopaths also believe in their superiority. They know that they're different and believe this difference makes them superhuman. Many suffer from a limited or restricted emotional range, meaning they don't enjoy the whole gamut of feelings like you and I do. Joy, contentment, sorrow, guilt, and regret are often not a part of their emotional repertoire, making them appear cold or robotic. And they discover that by imitating the emotional reactions of others is useful to get what they want. Serial killer Ted Bundy sometimes wore a cast and pretended he was disabled in order to lure his victims in. Remember the video of the woman whose boyfriend had the no crying rule? Here's Lee's explanation.
She said her ex-boyfriend had a rule that you could not cry around him because he saw that all tears are manipulation, that people crying are trying to manipulate the person that they're crying in front of. A lot of narcissists and toxic people feel that way about seeing other people cry in front of them because if that narcissistic person cries, they are typically using their own tears to try to manipulate the situation that they themselves are in. So they assume that other people are trying to do the same thing to them. Oh, your dog passed away, you're crying. Oh, you're trying to make me feel sorry for you, trying to manipulate me. The narcissist will think that you are using your tears to manipulate them because narcissists use tears to manipulate you. Rarely ever will you ever see a narcissist cry unless they get caught cheating and you're going to leave them or something like that. Unless they made a huge error in judgment and now they've caught up and you're going to leave them. They'll boohoo cry and use our own tears as a manipulation tactic to get you to stay.
Just like you and I come to the wrong conclusions about the motives of a narcissist or an antisocial personality disorder, by assuming they're behaving like we would, they make the same error about us. If they would cry to exploit a situation, then we must be doing the same. Can you imagine living in a world where everyone has an agenda that's probably hostile to your own? Now you understand the perspective of a narcissist and a psychopath sociopath. So what are we supposed to do if we're faced with this situation? If we cave to their rules by hiding all of our reactions, then we've given our power and control away. Shutting down or turning off feelings violates our sense of self. We'll be shrinking ourselves in order to fit to their mold, and none of that is good. Yet when we are our most authentic emotional self, we'll be seen as a threat. So we're in a bind. The most obvious answer is to avoid having a relationship with such people whenever we can. But maybe you're in a situation like this and you need to reassess how healthy this is for you and your family. My online course, First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist, was created to help you figure out the truth so that you can regain mental clarity about your situation. But maybe you are ready to leave and you need a safety plan. Please check out my free gift, a helpful guide called the Exit Strategy Checklist. To get your copy, see the links in the show notes below. But perhaps for a lot of complicated reasons you can't leave. Here are some survival tips until you can. First, Reduce exposing your real self to the toxic person. Recognize your partner or family member has a radically different mindset than your own. They've lost the privilege of knowing you and can't be trusted with your emotional self. So show less of it. This strategy is different than trying to maintain a close relationship by shrinking yourself, because in this scenario, you're changing the dynamics of the relationship by changing your own expectation versus changing yourself. Instead of seeking their approval by being less, you show less because they've lost the privilege of knowing you. Second, emotionally detach. Every person we meet, we unconsciously categorize as safe, sort of safe, safe enough, and really safe. We get into trouble when we want a close relationship with someone who doesn't qualify as safe enough. Revise your internal assessment by mentally shifting their membership into a less safe category, and then emotionally withdraw your investment in them. And you may find by doing this that you naturally share less of yourself. And third, be prepared for an emotional backlash. You're losing an idealized dream of a close relationship, and that's going to be experienced as a death. Allow yourself to grieve this change. And your partner is also likely to notice that you've changed and become suspicious. Just like they expect you to have an ulterior motive for your tears, they'll assume the same about your emotional withdrawal. So be prepared to be seen as a threat and stand firm. None of this is easy, but by taking these steps, you're going to be better able to protect yourself. Has this video been helpful in understanding why narcissists and other toxic people are threatened by your tears? If so, be sure to like it and stick around by subscribing to this channel. And if I've described your situation, please don't wait. Begin today to attack your confusion with my online course, First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist, and break free from the mental confusion and agony of cognitive dissonance. If you liked this episode, then be sure to check out last week's, when I explained why relationships with these types of people leave us so dazed and confused. And you're not going to want to miss next week when I talk about why narcissists fall out of love with us over seemingly nothing. Hey, big hugs and stay strong and safe.